My beloved child, stop for one quiet moment, because what is beginning to move behind the scenes is nothing like what you have imagined. There is a chapter unfolding that has remained invisible until now, and every passing hour is bringing it closer to the surface. You have spent so much time believing nothing was changing, yet the greatest transformations are often completely silent before they become impossible to ignore. So don't rush away. There is something hidden inside today's message that may completely change the way you see the path ahead. Have you ever wondered why certain moments feel strangely calm just before everything shifts? It is because life often prepares its biggest surprises in complete silence. While your attention has been focused on ordinary days, another story has been taking shape beyond your view. The person connected to your destiny has been standing at a crossroads, facing thoughts they never expected to have. Questions they once ignored now refuse to leave their mind. Memories they believed were finished continue returning without explanation. None of this happened by accident. What if the silence you've been interpreting as distance has actually been a season of preparation? What if every unanswered question has been leading toward one unexpected decision? Think about that for a second. Sometimes the greatest turning points never announce themselves. They simply arrive, quietly, changing everything before anyone notices. Stay with this message a little longer, because the next few moments reveal something deeper. Your soulmate is approaching a realization they cannot continue avoiding. It isn't pressure. It isn't coincidence. It is clarity. For the first time in a long while, they are beginning to recognize what truly matters. The distractions that once occupied their attention are losing their power. The noise surrounding them is becoming quieter. And inside that growing silence, one thought keeps returning again and again. You. Not because of fantasy. Not because of chance. But because certain connections refuse to disappear, no matter how much time passes. Imagine someone opening a door they promised themselves would remain closed forever. Imagine them looking back at memories with completely different eyes. Suddenly conversations they once dismissed begin making sense. Small moments they overlooked become impossible to forget. Even the smallest details now carry unexpected meaning. Could this be why your own intuition has felt different recently? Sometimes your heart notices movement long before your eyes ever can. But here is the part almost nobody expects. The change isn't simply emotional. It is becoming intentional. There comes a point when thinking is no longer enough. Reflection becomes action. Questions become decisions. Waiting becomes movement. Your soulmate is approaching exactly that kind of moment, a moment where staying the same feels harder than stepping into something completely unfamiliar. Before you continue, ask yourself one honest question. If life suddenly presented you with the opportunity you thought would never come, would you recognize it? Or would you doubt it because it arrived differently than expected? That question matters more than you realize. Because destiny rarely repeats the picture you've imagined. Instead, it arrives wearing unexpected colors, unfamiliar timing, and surprising circumstances. Those who remain aware recognize the opportunity. Those who only expect one specific outcome often watch it pass without seeing it. Listen carefully. The next step your soulmate is considering isn't something people around them predicted. Even they are surprised by the direction their heart is beginning to take. Old assumptions are quietly dissolving. New courage is growing beneath the surface. Every day, that courage becomes just a little stronger. This is why today's message found you. Not to promise certainty, but to prepare your perspective. Because sometimes the biggest surprise is not what another person does. It is discovering that everything you believed was impossible had already started becoming possible while you were busy believing nothing was happening. Wait just a little longer. The next chapter uncovers why this unexpected choice carries far greater meaning than anyone realizes, and once that hidden piece is revealed, the entire story begins to make perfect sense. A quiet shift is happening now, and this is where the story begins to reveal what was hidden all along. Stay with me for a little longer, because the next few moments connect pieces that once seemed completely unrelated. What looked like random events may actually have been guiding both of you toward the same destination from opposite directions. Your soulmate has reached a place where pretending everything is normal no longer feels possible. The routines that once kept them distracted have started losing their meaning. They still smile. They still move through each day. But beneath that calm surface, something has changed forever. A question keeps echoing inside them: what if I've been ignoring the one path that truly mattered? That single thought has become impossible to silence. Sometimes life doesn't create change through loud moments. It creates change through quiet realizations that grow stronger every sunrise. One memory leads to another. One conversation unlocks another reflection. One unexpected feeling begins rewriting an entire future. And that is exactly what is happening. The surprising thing isn't that your soulmate is thinking about you. The surprising thing is what they are preparing themselves to do next. Instead of continuing to hide behind uncertainty, they are beginning to imagine a future that once felt completely unreachable. They're no longer asking, "Is this possible?" They're slowly asking, "What happens if I never try?" That difference changes everything. Think about it. Every great turning point in life begins with one invisible decision. Nobody applauds it. Nobody notices it. Yet that quiet decision becomes the reason an entirely different future exists months later. Perhaps you've been wondering why your own heart has felt unusually restless lately. Why certain thoughts appear without invitation. Why familiar places suddenly remind you of something you cannot explain. Sometimes two journeys begin aligning long before the travelers ever realize they're walking toward the same horizon. Stay until the end of this message, because the final piece of today's revelation is closer than you think. Here's something many people overlook. Unexpected actions rarely happen without unexpected courage. Your soulmate has been facing fears that nobody else can see. Fear of misunderstanding. Fear of timing. Fear of taking one step only to discover the road is uncertain. But something inside them has started becoming stronger than those fears. Hope. Hope has a quiet way of changing people. It doesn't shout. It whispers. And whispers repeated often enough become conviction. Soon, hesitation will no longer feel comfortable. Remaining silent will become heavier than speaking honestly. Standing still will feel harder than moving forward. That is why this moment feels different from every chapter before it. Before we continue this journey together, if this message has touched something deep within you, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Stories often become even more meaningful when people reflect together. And if messages like this bring clarity to your day, subscribing simply helps us continue exploring these journeys side by side. Now take one slow breath and imagine this. What if the action your soulmate is preparing isn't the dramatic event everyone expects? What if it's something simple? A message. A conversation. A decision they never believed they would have the courage to make. Sometimes the smallest action becomes the doorway to the biggest transformation. And the most unforgettable surprises are rarely the loudest ones. They're the quiet choices that change two lives forever. The next chapter uncovers why this unexpected decision has been delayed until now, and what finally gives your soulmate the confidence to cross the line they once believed they could never cross. Everything changes from this point, because what has been building quietly beneath the surface is finally approaching the moment where it can no longer remain hidden. Don't leave just yet. The next revelation isn't about coincidence. It is about timing, and timing has its own remarkable way of surprising everyone involved. There comes a season in every person's journey when waiting stops feeling like safety. Your soulmate is entering that exact season. The walls they built to protect their emotions are beginning to feel like barriers instead of shelter. The excuses that once sounded convincing no longer carry the same weight. Day by day, they are discovering that the future they truly want cannot be reached by standing still. That realization is powerful. Because once someone accepts that truth, they rarely remain the same. Picture someone standing at the edge of a bridge they have been afraid to cross for a very long time. Every step forward feels uncertain, yet every step backward feels even heavier. That is where your soulmate finds themselves now. They understand that remaining silent may protect them today, but it may also cause them to lose tomorrow. And suddenly, the impossible begins to look possible. The distant begins to feel close. The unanswered begins searching for its answer. Life often works in ways that only make sense after everything has unfolded. Looking back, you'll notice that every delay, every unexpected turn, every moment of uncertainty was quietly preparing both paths to meet at exactly the right point. Not earlier. Not later. Exactly when growth had replaced fear. But here is the unexpected truth. The action your soulmate is preparing may not look the way you imagined. It may arrive through a calm conversation instead of a dramatic moment. It may begin with honesty instead of perfect confidence. It may start with one simple sentence that carries years of unspoken emotion. Never underestimate the power of a single genuine moment. Entire futures have changed because someone finally chose authenticity over hesitation. Ask yourself something. If someone surprised you by becoming the version of themselves you had quietly hoped for all along, would you be ready to see them with fresh eyes? Sometimes destiny doesn't ask us to predict the future. It asks us to remain open to it. That openness is where extraordinary stories begin. Notice how your own perspective has shifted while listening to this message. At the beginning, it may have sounded like a mystery. But now it feels more like preparation. You are no longer waiting for something unbelievable to happen. You are becoming aware that meaningful change often begins in silence, long before it becomes visible. And perhaps that is the greatest surprise of all. Not that your soulmate is about to do something you never expected, but that life has been preparing both of you for this moment without either of you fully realizing it. The next step belongs to time. Time has a way of revealing what patience could never force. So keep your heart steady. Keep your vision clear. Continue moving forward with confidence, because the most meaningful chapters are written by those who remain hopeful even when the ending has not yet appeared. And if today's journey gave you something to reflect on, consider sharing it with someone who might need the same reminder. You can also leave a comment about the part that resonated most with you, and subscribe if you'd like to continue exploring these inspiring stories together. Until our next chapter, remember this: the greatest surprises rarely arrive with noise. They arrive quietly. Then change everything. A single moment can rewrite an entire story. And that moment is closer than it has ever been. Stay with this until the very end, because the next piece of this journey reveals why your soulmate's unexpected action is not happening out of impulse. It is happening because something inside them has finally changed forever. For a long time, your soulmate believed that waiting was the safest choice. They convinced themselves that silence was easier than vulnerability, that distance was simpler than honesty. But life has a remarkable way of challenging the stories we tell ourselves. Recently, they have begun noticing signs they once ignored. Certain memories return without invitation. Familiar places awaken forgotten emotions. Even ordinary days now seem to carry quiet reminders that something important has been left unfinished. And that realization refuses to disappear. Every sunrise strengthens it. Every quiet evening gives it another voice. What once felt impossible is slowly becoming the only path that feels true. Have you noticed how the biggest changes in life rarely happen overnight? They build one thought at a time. One realization leads to another. One brave decision inspires the next. By the time anyone else notices, the transformation has already taken place. That is exactly where your soulmate stands today. They are no longer asking whether they should move forward. They are asking themselves how. That difference is extraordinary. Because once a heart begins searching for a way instead of an excuse, the future starts opening doors that never seemed to exist before. Imagine standing before two roads. One leads back to familiar comfort. The other leads toward uncertainty, but also toward possibility. Most people choose comfort. Very few choose possibility. Your soulmate is beginning to understand that the second road, though unfamiliar, may be the one that finally brings peace to their heart. Pause for a second and think about this. What if the unexpected thing they are about to do isn't simply reaching out? What if they are preparing to let go of every fear that has held them back? What if they are ready to become someone even they never expected to become? That is the kind of transformation that changes more than a single moment. It changes an entire future. Life rewards courage in quiet ways. It doesn't always create fireworks. Sometimes it offers one meaningful conversation, one genuine smile, one honest step forward. Those small moments become the foundation of unforgettable chapters. You may not see every piece falling into place today. You don't have to. Some stories are meant to unfold one page at a time. And this story is only becoming more meaningful with every chapter. So remain patient. Remain hopeful. Remain open to possibilities that arrive differently than you imagined. Because the most beautiful surprises are rarely the ones we predict, they are the ones that arrive at exactly the right time, carrying lessons, growth, and opportunities we never knew we needed. The next chapter reveals what happens when your soulmate finally acts on this new clarity. And why that single decision has the power to create a completely new beginning for both of your journeys. A new beginning often arrives disguised as an ordinary day, and this is the moment where everything quietly starts to shift. Stay with this final part, because the ending of this message may reveal why your soulmate's next move is unlike anything you have imagined. There is a point in every journey when the heart becomes stronger than hesitation. Your soulmate is approaching that point now. The doubts that once kept them standing still are beginning to lose their influence. Every lesson they have lived through has been preparing them for one unexpected choice, a choice they never believed they would have the courage to make. It isn't about perfection. It isn't about having every answer. It is about finally realizing that some opportunities only appear once, and letting them pass would leave a question that echoes for years. That realization changes everything. Perhaps you've noticed how life sometimes places people on separate paths, not to keep them apart forever, but to help them become the people they were always meant to be. Growth often happens in different places, at different speeds. Yet when both journeys reach the right season, the distance between them begins to disappear. Your soulmate is beginning to see the bigger picture. What once looked like coincidence now feels meaningful. What once felt uncertain now feels worth exploring. And what once seemed impossible is slowly becoming their greatest source of hope. Imagine opening a door you spent years walking past because you assumed it was locked, only to discover it had been waiting for you all along. That is the feeling growing inside them. Not fear. Not confusion. But quiet confidence. The kind of confidence that doesn't need to announce itself because it already knows where it is going. This is why today's message wasn't really about predicting the future. It was about recognizing transformation before it becomes visible. Because the greatest changes are born inside the heart long before they appear in the outside world. If you've stayed with this story from beginning to end, thank you for sharing this journey. If one part spoke to you more than another, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if these stories bring encouragement and curiosity into your day, subscribing simply means we'll continue exploring many more meaningful journeys together. Now carry this final thought with you. Never underestimate the quiet decisions people make when no one is watching. Those unseen moments often become the turning points that shape entire lifetimes. Your soulmate is about to do something you never expected. Not because destiny forced them. Not because someone else told them to. But because they have finally become the person who is ready to choose courage over comfort, possibility over fear, and hope over hesitation. And perhaps the greatest surprise was never the action itself. Perhaps the greatest surprise is discovering that while you believed the story had paused, it was quietly moving toward its most unforgettable chapter all along. If you'd like, I can also make the next script even more cinematic and unpredictable with an entirely different storytelling style so it doesn't resemble your previous videos. The story doesn't truly end here, because some endings are simply the quiet beginning of something far greater. Before you leave, stay with this final reflection. Sometimes the last piece of a journey becomes the one you remember the longest. Your soulmate's unexpected decision is no longer just an idea. It has become direction. The uncertainty that once surrounded them is slowly being replaced by purpose. Every experience they have lived through, the victories, the disappointments, the unanswered questions, has quietly shaped the person they are becoming. Looking back, they can finally see that nothing was wasted. Every delay carried a lesson. Every pause built strength. Every silence prepared clarity. That is why this chapter feels different. It is no longer about wondering if something will change. It is about recognizing that change has already begun. Picture the first light of dawn. Before the sun appears above the horizon, the world is still wrapped in darkness. Yet the morning has already arrived. You simply cannot see it completely yet. Life often works the same way. The most meaningful transformations begin long before they become visible. Your soulmate has entered that first light. Quietly. Steadily. One realization at a time. Perhaps you were meant to hear this today for a reason.